Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. My name is Dan Hefner. I have another awesome guest for you guys on today's episode. But before we get into that, just as a little teaser, we're going to talk about confidence today. We're going to talk about, um, you know, a little bit back to our personal development roots of this show. If you guys have gone back that far, if you've been a listener that long, I mean, this is a couple hundred episodes ago. We used to talk a lot about this, but I think this is a very timely conversation. That's why I brought Scott on. So I'm very excited to have a conversation with him and dive into this topic. But before I do that, um, if you have not already, subscribe to the show, subscribe to this channel wherever you're listening or watching. I'm in the middle of what we're calling the No Code Advantage series. Okay, we've already released. I think this is the episode after episode 2 has come out. It's only 2 of 10, so we're diving into this. It's already been really awesome. I've got really good feedback from it. So if you're at all interested in the world of no code or building software or even just learning a different skill or whatever the case might be, if this topic of no code interests you, subscribe to the show and then listen, be sure to pay attention to the No Code Advantage series that's dropping, because people are really, really eating it up and it's really, really fun. I'm having a good time doing it. So that is my self plug to begin this episode. But as I mentioned, I have a guest on with me here. His name's Scott Ballard, and he is the confidence coach, and he's going to teach us all about being confident human beings. So welcome to the show, Scott. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to this and excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, before we hit record here, we had a quite a history of this show. Like when I first started the show, for those of you who don't remember, it wasn't even called Tech Bytes. Like it was called Run Your Day, and I would literally hold up my phone and I would just talk about business, personal development stuff. Um, some of my episodes were crazy. I was like, screaming into the phone. Like it was crazy. I was just publishing, right? The Russell Brunson method
Oh,
of
wow.
just publish. But it helped me find my confidence. I think that was a that maybe that's a good segue into this first. This first question is like, is that I think that did help me find confidence in myself and my voice in what I do, because I just wasn't afraid to do the reps. So
Mm.
I guess there's not really a question in there, but like, is that something that you see that, can contribute to people like developing, like I guess, first of all, like, how did you get into this world of being like the confidence guy?
Yeah. Well, I'll make this super short. It started when I was 7 years old and I was in first grade and I was struggling to learn like the other kids in my class. And this was in the 60s, Dan. So way back before they knew about learning disabilities and things like that. And my teacher got frustrated with me and she said, "You're stupid and you're dumb and you'll never be anything." And I believed that lie and all the confidence that I'd come into school with, because I was like the most likable kid and I had all the friends and I loved, I wanted to go and all that, was shot because I believed a lie. And then over the next year and a half or 2 years, with a tutor that came into my life to help me as a dyslexic to read and write properly, I then believed the truth that actually I could do this and I was gifted. And really confidence is born out of courage. A lot of reps of courage give you sustainable confidence when you need it in the moment. But it's like you talking about the beginning of doing this podcast. You're just walking around with your phone and you're crying and you're yelling or whatever. Like that's courage. That's being vulnerable and being uncomfortable, and courage is really where we then can start to build a foundation of confidence. And that started with me, doing first grade twice and having a tutor saying, "No, you're going to figure this out." And by the time I got to sixth grade, my teacher took all the desk out of the class and he turned the whole class into a business. Everybody had a business and we learned by doing and whatever. By the end of the class, I owned every business. I had all the money because I dyslexics have a high propensity to entrepreneurship and all this. And so
Hmm.
my tutor was right, and my first grade teacher the first time was dead wrong. But I had to decide who I was going to believe, and then take steps of courage and uncomfortability to build my courage and confidence. So this has been a life. This is all I know. Like I know what it's like to be suicidal because somebody said you're not confident and you don't have any ability, somebody of authority, and then have somebody come in and believe in you and have confidence. So this is what I do with leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, is I help them build their courage, their confidence by being uncomfortable and doing a lot of reps. And you're like the poster child for it, Dan. But yeah, so I'm 65 now, and I feel like I haven't worked a day in 20 years because this is all I do now is work with people to overcome that, to believe in themselves, and then to build the life, the business and the life that they want. I believe success is not just in a business, but it's in your personal life. Like I believe success can be had all the way around. I'm living it. I know a lot of people want to have that. So
That's
long
amazing.
answer. Sorry.
No, no, that's great. There's a lot there. That's awesome. I love the story of the first grade Monopoly magnet that you became, or magnet. Like you became the Rockefeller of your of your
Yeah,
first
of my
grade.
class. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really cool
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
No, like you touched on something that's very interesting, and I think like entrepreneurship it's a very interesting game because you fail a lot. Like it's hard to build confidence when you fail, So, excuse me. So how do you coach people through that? Like how do you build that bridge of like, hey, look, you built something, maybe you built an app, you built a software, you built a business, built a program, you built whatever, and it flopped and it sucked and nobody bought it. Like how can you build confidence out of something like that?
It's almost like you can read my mind, Dan. Like, yeah, this is great. This is a great intro question. So I get this question all the time, and it really lights me up because my own life is the proof of that. So when I got married to my high school sweetheart, we were young, we were 21, and didn't know anything from anything. But one of the things I learned was that I wanted to have a business. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to do this American dream, like I had this thing, but I couldn't read and write for my life, and I flunked out of 3 colleges, and the only reason I graduated high school is I was really good in sports, and so in the town I grew up in, that was an important thing. So I kept getting passed on, but what I did is I started a business and it failed, and my wife said to me, "Well, what did you learn, and what are you going to do next time?" And that happened 10 times in a row. And I've written a lot about the failure is our greatest teacher. And so when you fail a lot, the way you can move forward and not go backwards is by taking the nugget of what you learn. So the fuel is what I learn when I fail, in order for me to have the energy to keep moving forward to another failure, another, until I get it right. So on my 11th business, 10 of them failed. My 11th business, I was in an industry, didn't know anything about it, shouldn't have been in it, and got in the business, didn't make a penny the first 3 years, Dan. And then I had this moment where I saw it differently than the whole industry. It was in insurance. I saw it totally different. I went to that 4 years later. Out of 10,000 competitors, we were number three in the nation in sales and production. And for the next 21 years, we were top one, two, or three in the nation selling that product. We went from our kitchen table and $100 to 42 states we sold in the US, and became a major player and made a bunch of innovation. Even in technology, I created a technology to take an insurance application over a phone PBX, the first time ever done in the world, because your voice is a more verifiable signature than your actual written signature. And we were the one, I created that idea because I was frustrated about getting things underwritten and done. And it was all this paper and all this slow thing. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. So, yeah. So that's how everybody experiences success, is learning. It's our teacher, the failure. What did you learn? And then use that as the fuel to take another shot at it and another shot. And we all know Thomas Edison. We know all the stories of the people that have had the greatest impact, the greatest entrepreneurs, the inventors, are people that have had massive failure, because that's the PhD for the entrepreneur. And if you can look at it that way and not take it personal, don't take it personal. See, in first grade with the first grade teacher, Dan, I took it personal when she said I was dumb and stupid and would never be anything, because I was taught to believe authority, and that was a person of authority. And that almost killed me. I became suicidal. I ran away from home. I had all kinds of problems. And then when my tutor came into the picture, the first thing she said to me, she goes, "You're going to do something great in your life." And she would tell me this day after day, like 5 years in a row. I met with her almost every day of the year. And that's how she would start the session. Well, by the time I got to sixth grade and the guy opened up the classroom as a business, I was like, do this. Like, it's not reading and writing, so I could be creative and I could see it differently. And kids didn't see opportunities I saw. I bought a little popcorn machine so I could sell snacks at recess, and I rented basketballs and like all these crazy things. And it
Hmm.
was like, no, I am going to do something significant. And even when I was a young person, I was like, no, I'm destined to do that. And so today, I've coached the CEO of the 10th largest company in the world. I've worked with NFL football players. Like, I have no education. I have no. I'm working with a tech startup right now where this guy's created this thing, and he's bought three of his competitors in the last year since I've been coaching him, because he become unstuck about what didn't work, and let's focus on what does work with what you're building, and then let's add pieces to it, kind of like what Google did. Like, that's what we're doing. And it's like, it's belief. It's what are we learning? Because we're, as entrepreneurs, you signed up to fail. Somebody needs to tell the world that. Nobody tells them. Like, these people get all these great ideas, especially younger people, like, I'm an entrepreneur now, it's automatic success. No, you just signed up for a million failures because you didn't seek security in a job. You said you're seeking opportunity. Opportunity comes from courage and failing, and courage and learning, and courage and growing. And then boom, suddenly success is there. Suddenly after 10 years.
Yeah, suddenly after 10 years, isn't that the that's the most ironic thing?
I love
Yeah,
it.
there's a lot. I'm a big analogy guy, but there's a lot of things. And there's a quote that somebody said. I cannot think of me who for the life of me said it. But it was along the lines of like, it's easy to connect the dots looking back. Like anyone can do that. It's looking forward that it's like impossible to connect the dots, but you've touched on something very interesting. I want to talk about this. Maybe this is a little selfish, but also I think this will relate to a lot of people. You said that, like that first grade teacher was the one that kind of inserted that lie into you that you started to believe that was not true about who you were and what you could do. Then you had another one that built you up, that had this positive affirmation that was surrounding you, and it was just this, it was a different seed planted in your mind, right? So my question is, I've been like that. I'm a person with the five love languages. I know that I'm a words of affirmation guy. Like, I know, I tell my wife that, I'm like, if you just tell me I'm doing a good job, like, it's all I need to hear, you know what I mean? So that's interesting. um you know Being in an entrepreneurial role, being in that, like, is that worth, what's the science? I mean, maybe not like the science. What's the process behind, like, just hearing that from not only yourself of like positive affirmations, but hearing that from like a mentor or someone like that? Is that a common differentiator between like the most
Mm.
successful people?
Yeah, it's coding. Yeah, I
Huh.
mean, I'm not a coder. I don't know anything about technology, but Dan, it's coding. It's like you either have good coding that eventually will spread out something that'll be wonderful, or you've had bad coding and you have all kinds of bugs. Like, I'll
It's
speak in your language, like I don't know it, I could never do it. I have no tech ability at all, but what I do is I provide good code. And what that really is, Dan, is belief. Like, I believe in seeing you, the greatness, the genius that you can't see because you're so hung up in what didn't work and where you're not at and what you don't have, and comparison to somebody else and all these things. And I just sit there and go, I believe. I hate to oversimplify it and ruin it for all coaches, but my greatest gift and the reason I've been able to do the work I can do is I have this God given ability to believe in people when nobody else sees or can believe in them. And sometimes that's even their
amazing.
wife or their family. Like, And it's the superpower. Like if you have somebody believing in you, and I did at 8 years of age. I mean, Miss Slaymaker came into my life and like she was unshakable. And I would sit there and I'd cry and I'd like, and I'd just try to kill myself. And she's like, God, you're gonna do something great in your life. Like she was unwavering. I was like, this lady. Like,
Like,
but
what are you
five
talking?
years
Yeah.
later,
Uh,
5 years later, I won the award in sixth grade in our elementary school for like being the person of our class. I mean, there's no business other than her programming me. So what do I do is I put really good code into people in ways that they've never had before, believing really in who the best version of themselves is, even if it's like they're in a terrible state. I don't care. I have a client that I met with him yesterday. He's a doctor. I'm 13 years in. When I met him, he was $1 million in debt from school, and he bought a practice that he found out later had no patients, $1 million for that. And when I met him, that's where he was at. Just total disaster. Today, he's number one on the West Coast of what he does. He's a multimillionaire. He owns 4 homes. He travels. He only works 3 days a week. But my job, I said, why do you keep hiring me? He goes, because you are the one that deposits belief in me, code in me every time we meet, every month. And that is my secret weapon. Because anybody can do what I do, but they don't have that program built into it. And that's what I do. I help people
amazing.
believe.
That's amazing. And the so I was going to ask you for a case study, but I think we kind of already get. Maybe we can dive more into that one. That sounds very interesting. But the question I want to ask beforehand, um, you know, you talk about self-belief. Like, is that a muscle? Is that something that's like it's like a muscle of if you don't work it, it atrophies? Is that something that you need to work at every single day? Or is that something that, like you said, if you know you're not good at building up that self-belief in yourself, is that something you need to have someone else make sure that they do and stick to that? Or I'm not really sure what the question. This is not a question I wrote down, obviously, but I'm just curious. Is that a muscle that can be strengthened and also atrophy?
Well, it absolutely is. I mean, you know the answer. I mean, you're kind of answering your own question and
Yeah, but
stating
I
that.
want to hear
Like
your
you,
thoughts. I want to hear how
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
process
So,
it. Yeah.
so, so here's the thing. Most people don't make it a priority. They don't make it a practice. They don't invest. The most important thing, and I'm going to sound like way out there saying the most important thing you can invest in is your own courage, confidence, self in your own identity, your true identity, which is greatness. Like it's in everybody. Like, but it's the last thing an entrepreneur, CEO, a business owner thinks about investing. They'll invest in equipment, classes, technology, people,
Yeah.
staff, all these things, and they've never invested in their own self, their own identity, their own courage, their own confidence, their own uncomfortability. And I go, why is that the last thing? It's because you don't actually believe in yourself. Your purchases, the way you operate your business tells me everything about what you think of yourself. My job is to mess with your thinking about yourself, to
Hmm.
show you glimpses of genius in your past. Like I go back to people's first memory and I go like that. Think at that point you were acting in who you really are, and that's the genius that we got to get back out,
That's
right?
interesting. Yeah.
But to do that on your own, I've never seen anybody be able to do it on their own, because there has to be that I'm one step removed. So I can see things that you can't see. We all have blind spots. We all do. I do. That's why I have a coach. Like I have blind spots. Like that's what this is about. And then even having the confidence or the courage to say, I want to be the best version of myself. I know I can't do that on my own.
Yeah. And that
Do
takes a
I
little bit of humility to admit,
Well, and it's a litmus test. Do I believe myself enough to invest in myself?
Yeah.
I'll invest in team. I'll invest in, this widget maker or that thing or what, all these other things. But I've never invested in myself. Like, on a discovery call, I'll always ask people, like, how much have you invested in yourself to be the entrepreneur that you dream of being?
And what's the normal answer? Zero. Wow,
0. And then
that's
and then they
incredible.
wonder why 7 years in they're still struggling, and like it's stop and go, and it's backwards, and then like it's all over the place. And I'm like, well, because the foundation, which is you, it isn't an app, it isn't like those are all things, but the foundation is you. And if you're not willing to invest and be uncomfortable and do hard things, because here's what I'm known for: I'll ask the question and nobody else is going to ask you. Like in 20 years, that is what my clients love most about me. Now that can be really awkward, Dan.
Yeah.
That can be super uncomfortable, but it's where all the growth is. I asked a guy the other day, why are you trying to buy your competitor? And he goes, well, I just think that's the thing to do. And I go, why do you think that? He goes, well, I read something, or I listened to this, and I think that's what you do at this. And I was like, do you realize all the problems your competitor has? Have you thought about that's what you would be inheriting? Then he did a research. He texted me like 20 minutes later. He's like, holy crap, that would have been disastrous. And I go, yeah, they have 3 lawsuits going on right now.
But because there was a deep-seated story and belief that that's the next move I need to make, there's blinders. There's complete shutdown of anything else.
And
That's
he
interesting.
and Dan, he didn't have anybody in his life to say, why are you doing that? That's stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to do that as his coach. And he goes, what? I think you just saved me $1 million. So this is working out. Like he's very adroit about the whole. And I'm just like, well, this is what we're doing. And he
Yeah.
goes, yeah. He goes, I guess I'm seeing a whole different side. I didn't see that. Like, well, that's my job. Just say it's black, it's not white, or it's white, it's not black. Like because all your leadership team, they're just telling you what you want to hear so they can get a promotion, a pay raise, a bonus.
Mhm.
And he goes, oh, that hurts. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the truth. That's why I'm here.
Sometimes you just need to hold up the mirror, like that can be all that it
I'm the
is.
mirror.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you said I remember the very first time I invested in a program for myself. It was $3,000. I
Mm.
had never spent that kind of money on anything like that ever, which is funny because like I went to college, but it was all on student loans. So it wasn't really the same thing. You never really saw that money. You know what I mean? It just was kind of
You
like,
didn't feel the pain.
yeah, I remember. And it was like, I was like, what the hell am I about to do? What, like, it's almost illogical, right? Like you said, like, especially in this tech field, like I could tell you I couldn't even tell you the amount of money I've spent on software and tools and different things like that. One, because I needed some of them, and some because I thought I needed some of them. But I think a lot of people in the tech field do that. But I think it's actually probably, and you might agree with this, it might be one of the biggest blind spot communities of not investing in yourself.
Number one.
Number one.
Number one.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, because the gadget, the widget, the software, the app, the whatever is a painless fail.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is it doesn't directly reflect on me not being showing up and being the best version
So you
of
can
myself.
blame the tool if it fails.
Yes, yes. And
I
it's
got you. Okay.
easier for me to buy the software license than to go, why do I keep making that bad decision? Why am I
Mm,
self-sabotaging? Why have I got this imposter syndrome? Why do I get the company here and then I do something stupid and it goes back down? I got to lay half the people off. Like this is the tech world because they never do the internal coding to figure out, okay, what that happened when I was 10 years old. That's why I'm doing that. I have to go back, just like I had to go back to 7, 8 years old, sixth grade, my first 10 failures. And like I have to go back and go, okay, what was I believing? What was I thinking? What happened?
Hmm.
And I've had to painfully do that. And then now it's like I get the joy, and it is joy because the result is so phenomenal. I get the joy to walk people through that over time. And it doesn't happen in a moment. That's the other thing that people in tech, they want instant. Well,
Yeah.
this kind of work is not instant. It's can take years, but
Yeah.
it is the best work you'll ever do.
Yeah, and there's a term that I never even knew about until I don't know, I was probably a couple of years into business and heard this term technical debt. And I'm like, what the hell is technical debt? And I looked in and I had a tech business. I'm like, I should probably know what this means. And I was like, oh, it's interesting. It's like, like just like you said, you go through and you build all these things and you might have this old website out here that doesn't really work, or this thing that you built that doesn't like, or this software, like there's just all kinds of different like junk that's not useful or not producing something, and it's just this technical debt. And that came to mind when you were just explaining that, because in the coding world, in the software world, we can be very like it's a simple process to be like, okay, here's the requirements for what this is, here's the problem it's solving, here's how I'm going to write it, and here's how I'm going to build it. And then you build this thing and it can tend to get bloated and out of control. And like you build unnecessary features and you get this technical debt. Well, the same thing happens in your brain. You start with this story, and then you build on this based on some of your experiences and your failures and your successes and what other people tell you and what you tell yourself. And there's all this bullshit, all this technical debt, this you get what I'm saying, like this story debt, this belief debt that you have. It's like cleaning out a house that you're a hoarder of, and there's just junk everywhere. It's like, yeah, it's going to take a little while to clean this place up. You know what I mean? That's
Oh
really
yeah, no,
interesting.
yeah, it's a great way of putting it. I mean, that's exactly what happens with our life. I asked somebody the other day, the story you're telling me right now, they were telling me about their journey of being a entrepreneur. I said, is that the truth or is that a lie?
Simple.
Long pause, Dan. Like he was like, and I go, well, the pause alone tells me that's not true. It was really interesting, like it was really insightful for him. It's like, yeah, I'm not telling the truth even to myself. We can't change. Like I've never had anybody, I've coached thousands of people. You can't change if you're not willing to tell the truth to yourself. It's
Amen.
impossible.
Amen, brother. But that can be also one of the hardest things to do. This is
Oh, it
probably
is the
why
hardest
not a lot of people do it. Yeah. Or you avoid it for as long time until you hire someone like you to get it to
yeah.
force you to do it.
Well, I don't know about forcing. I try to create a trust. See, I can create trust because my own story is so deep of my own journey. So
Yeah.
like, you can't talk about and teach something you haven't done and lived through. And so what I thought was the biggest failure of my life, trying to commit suicide and all these things when I was a young kid, is actually become the greatest gift that I can do to make a difference in the world. It's very interesting. Like that's how it's worked out. And that's in some way everybody's journey.
Yeah. In some way. In some way. Okay. So last question. What for someone that's still listening and been, listening to this podcast, and they might be in the technology world or wanting to break into it or whatever, you know, what can we do? Obviously we can I think we can already say we could start working through some of those stories, some of that quote unquote technical debt in our brain and what we believe. Do you have any other things that are just call to action, good things that we can start doing?
Yeah, I'll give you one of the greatest tools I discovered, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I've done to groups, one-on-one groups of entrepreneurs, large groups of people. And so if you're ever in a speaking thing and you really want to quiet the room and get people focused, this is what I do, and I want to share it with everybody here. And what I want to ask is a question, but when I ask the question before you answer it, you being the people in the group or Dan here, I'll answer it myself. And that question is, what is the greatest fear I have right now?
Mm.
Full honesty, like what is my greatest fear? And I start these presentations, this coaching, the speaking with this. And so then I go and I'm fully transparent. This is my great fear. This person has invited me. They're, leader in this community. They're a billionaire, and they wanted me to talk to their friends about like what I'm doing with them. And I say, I don't want to let Albert down. Right. Like that's my greatest fear, that he'll be like, my friends didn't get it. It was terrible. Like, why did I? And when I share that, then I go to them and I go, okay, now it's your turn. And the transformation, particularly for men, it can't be for women, but mainly for men, to actually say what their greatest fear is. It is one of the greatest things that they can do in their life to get set free, to then begin to live into who they really are, their true identity. And so that's my challenge, or my thing that I want to leave with you and your audience, is like, get with somebody that you like and you trust them, and do this. And then the second question is, what's the truth about that fear? What's really the truth about that fear? Once you say it and it gets out there, the fear goes from being a giant that has controlled you, like this unbelievable lie that's controlled you, to this small thing that you can manage. And the truth is, most fears are not nearly as big or terrible or any of that you think they are. You've let your imagination catastrophize and magnify that fear to the point where you're working on 20% of your ability.
Genius. Very,
We
very.
call it fearless. I call it fearless conversations
Is.
for people that want to build courage and confidence. It's so simple. Nobody ever does it. It's the most profound thing I've done in 20 years of coaching. I've seen unbelievable things happen with people
I
just
could,
doing that.
yeah, I could see how
Those
that's a
two
that's a
questions.
genius thing to do at a speaking event. Like to just instantly create vulnerability, authenticity, and connection with people. That's a genius move, my friend. Way to go. I like that a lot. So there you go. There you go. What is your greatest fear? It's like Coach Carter. What is your greatest fear, Mr. Cruz? What is your greatest fear? Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but we are powerful beyond all measure. That's awesome. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. I mean, not really off topic, but I'm quoting movies, um, which is another superpower of mine, secret superpower of mine. Well, thank you so much for joining, Scott. This has been really, really insightful. It was kind of enjoyable for me to go down this conversation route again. I've been very focused on the technology world and stuff, but this kind of it just made my day to like just kind of talk about this and kind of go back down this path. It was very, very fun. So I really appreciate you. So if we want to learn more, we want to, find out more about you. Where can we go? What can we do?
Yeah, the website's confidencecoach.org. And if you want to talk more about this, we've got a little calendar on there. You can grab 30 minutes with me. No, there's no sales pitch. I will do what I do with clients that pay me a lot of money, to have you experience what that's like and to get some kind of an insight or a breakthrough. And I've been doing this 20 years, Dan. I haven't worked a day in 20 years, because I get to work with people like you, like people that are doing amazing things in the world, and I get to be a part of that. And that it's inspiring for me. So yeah, that's where you find us. And
Well, it's inspiring to all
thanks,
of
Dan.
us. Yeah,
Thanks, Dan. You made this easy. I really appreciate you setting it up for me. This is great.
no worries. Thank you so much for joining. This was really, really fun. So there you go. We'll put the link in the show notes for you guys as always, confidencecoach.org. And even if you walk away from that 30 minutes with one valuable thing, I mean, that's like you said, like the one guy you talked with, you saved him $1 million. He said that's, hey, that's pretty good for free 30 minutes. That ain't bad, my friend. So there you go, guys. Check it out. Highly recommend it. I don't think you have much to lose there. So, all right. So that is going to be a wrap. Thank you so much, Scott. We really appreciate you coming on. And that is a wrap on this show. As always, be sure to check out the No Code Advantage, my friends. I'm going to plug it once again because I think it's really, really useful. It's going to be very, very helpful. The last episode, we actually talked about mindset. So it actually kind of tied in a little bit with what we're talking about here. So I'm glad we kind of dovetailed this in there. So that's a very, very, very cool thing. So as always, please like and subscribe to the show, leave a rating, leave a review. That's always helpful to grow this. And if you know of anyone who could benefit from this podcast with Scott, please share it with them because gosh, I feel like this could be a viral one. Like, I think everyone could listen to this and get quite a few insights out of this. So, all right, guys, that is it for this episode. As always, I appreciate all of you, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.